Hi everybody, it's Deedee here from stampinwithdeedee.com. Today I want to introduce you to the newest tool from Stampin Up, the Stamparatus. This innovative new stamp positioner will be available starting June 1st, 2018 in the new annual Stampin Up catalog. It was designed to make stamping easier and has some truly unique features for new creative possibilities in your stamping. Your Stamparatus will arrive in a little box, and I recommend keeping this to store it in. When you take it out of the box, you'll see that it has several parts, plus this handy instruction booklet. There are a couple of important warnings on the first page that I encourage you to read before you use your Stamparatus. I'll cover those in this video as well. Now let's look at the parts of this tool. You get two of these clear plates, a black foam mat, and a magnetic Stamparatus base. The base is the heart of the Stamparatus. You'll lay your papers here on the surface for stamping. You can see it's printed with grid lines, as well as rulers down two of the sides to help you align your stamps and papers. It's also open on two sides, so you can use it with any size of paper you want. On the back side of the Stamparatus, you'll find the two magnets that come with it. These are what you'll use to hold your paper in place on the base when you're stamping. Be sure to store them in their little cubbies when you're not using them. Now, to use your Stamparatus, you'll need to attach at least one of the clear plates. I say at least one because you can actually use both, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. These plates are interchangeable, so it doesn't matter which one you put where. To attach them, you just slide them right into the hinges along the top and the side of the base. You want to slide them straight in because if you try to do it at an angle, they won't go in properly and could break. These plates will act in place of clear blocks when you're stamping. With both of them attached, you now have two totally different surfaces to attach stamps to. Now before we get to stamping, let's talk a little bit more about these magnets that come with the Stamparatus. These magnets are super strong, so strong that if you put them anywhere near each other other than on the base, they're likely to snap together and possibly break. Look how strong this magnet is. Even when I try to pick it up from its cubby, it's really resisting. So now that you understand the parts of the Stamparatus, let's use it to do some stamping so you can see how it works. There are two kinds of stamps you can use with the Stamparatus, the cling mount red rubber and the clear photopolymer stamps. Let's start with a clear mount stamp. I've got one here from the Going Far set, and I'm just going to bring in some paper and align it on the base and then stick it down with my magnets so that it'll stay put while I stamp. It doesn't matter where on the base you put your paper, but I like to align mine at the 1-inch mark so that if I decide to make multiples, it's easy for me to know where to put my cardstock again. Now I'm just going to lay that stamp on my paper and position it where I want it with the image side facing down. Then I'll just close the clear plate over the cardstock and press to pick the stamp up onto the plate. Next, I need to ink up the stamp. I've grabbed my basic black archival ink pad for this. Now with the Stamparatus, you're basically going to be inking your stamps upside down. So instead of tapping the stamp on the pad, you're just going to tap the pad on the stamp. With the stamp inked, now I'm just going to close the plate over the cardstock again. Then give the stamp a little press through the plate to transfer the image to the cardstock. Now my image didn't ink fully, but what I can do with a stamp positioner, like the Stamparatus, is just re-ink it and then stamp it again. Since the stamp and the paper are both in the same place, this will just stamp perfectly right on top of the original image. Another benefit to using a stamp positioner is that you can leave the stamp right where it is on the clear plate and then just change out the cardstock to make multiples of the same image. You just want to make sure you position the cardstock in the same place you had that first piece. And this is where those grid lines on the base as well as the rulers come in handy. Now I'll just re-ink the stamp and stamp it the same way I did the first time. And this gives me a duplicate of that first image. Now you might have noticed that I got some ink on the clear plate when I was inking my stamp. That's because I used the full-size ink pad to do this. It doesn't bother me because I know I can just wash it off. But if it bothers you, you might try using the little ink spots like the ones that come in the paper pumpkin kits. You can also get these in the catalog uninked and then just ink them in your favorite colors with your reinker. Speaking of ink, you'll want to clean off your stamps before you put them away after using them. There are a few ways you can do this. I just use the Stampin' Mist that I normally use with my Stampin' Scrubber, and I put some on a soft cloth and then just use that to scrub off the stamps and the clear plates. Now let's stamp something with a photopolymer stamp so you can see the difference in how to use these with the Stamparatus. With this kind of stamp, we need to lay the black foam mat on top of the magnetic base. Then tuck the cardstock piece up into the upper right-hand corner. Since there's no grid on this pad, this helps with aligning your cardstock for making duplicate images. Now I'll just place the magnets and then we're ready to stamp. This time we'll do a little something different. We'll stamp a repeating pattern down the side of the cardstock. To start, I'll align my stamp to the first hinge on that right side clear plate. Then I'll just close the plate to pick up the stamp. Since I moved my cardstock a bit, I'll just push that right back into place. Now I'll just ink up the stamp with my Berry Burst ink pad and then close the plate over the cardstock to stamp the image. Now to make my repeating pattern, I could just pick up the stamp and move it slightly down on the plate. But with the Stamparatus, you don't have to do that. Since the plates just pop in and out of these hinges, you can just pick up the plate and move it down a notch or two to reposition your stamp. I'll move this one down a couple more notches to where I actually want it. And then you'll see when I stamp it, it's perfectly aligned with the first image that I stamped. I'm just going to go ahead and re-ink that and stamp it one more time to get a clearer image. Now I want to change ink color, so I'm going to do a quick clean on this Stampin' plate. And then just reposition the plate to where I want the next image to stamp. This time I'll use Bermuda Bay to ink up the stamp. I love the contrast between these two colors. Now I'll just stamp the image again, and you can see that my pattern is starting to come together. Once again, I'll move the plate down along the hinges to where I want the stamp, and then re-ink and stamp it one more time. Now I'll just clean the stamp again so I can change ink colors, and then move the plate one more time so I can finish off my pattern. I'm making the stamp this time with Lemon Lime Twist so that it will really stand out from the pattern. One last stamp with my clear plate, and now I've got a repeating pattern with perfectly spaced images. This fun hinge stamping technique is totally unique to the Stamparatus. You can do it with the side plate to make vertical patterns, or use the top plate to make horizontal ones. The Stamparatus is especially great for stamping two-step stamps. Aligning the layers precisely is so easy with this tool. Plus, the Stamparatus has another fun feature that makes it easy to stamp multiples, even with these sometimes hard-to-use stamps. Here I decided after the fact to make multiples of this two-step sunflower from Painted Harvest. So I'm using the original image as a guide to place my stamp so I can duplicate it. As I place each stamp, I'll pick it up with my clear plate. But not just one clear plate. The Stamparatus has two, so I'm going to use them both. Better still, since these plates come off their hinges, I'll just flip each one upside down and use the undersides to attach more stamps to. Okay, now I've got all my stamps on the plates. On the right side plate, I've got the base stamp for the flower on the top surface and the detail layer on the bottom. On the upper plate, I have the greeting on the top surface and the flower center on the bottom. Now watch how quickly even a detailed image like this comes together when using both of these plates and both sides of the plates. Okay, I sped that part up a bit, but hopefully you get the idea. Using both plates and both sides of the plates can really save you time when you're stamping, especially with these two-step stamps. Now there are a lot of other ways to use the Stamparatus. Pretty much anything you can do with stamps you can do with this tool and do more precisely. But to keep this video from getting too long, I'll save those for future tutorials. Before we sign off though, I want to talk to you quickly about storing your Stamparatus properly. First, the clear plates weren't designed to close over the top of each other, and if you try to do that, you could break them off right at the hinges. So to store your Stamparatus, you'll want to remove one and lay it on the base with its hinges pointing away from the base, and then just close the other plate over the top of it. Don't forget to put your magnets back in their individual cubbies on the bottom of the base. Then tuck the black foam mat between the clear plates on the magnetic base to keep it secure. Then just tuck the whole Stamparatus back into the box that it came in for safekeeping. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to the Stamparatus. This tool will be available to purchase starting June 1st, 2018 through my online Stampin' Up! Shop. In the meantime, please check back because I'll have other tutorials. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out. You can also visit my website at stampinwithdeedee.com for information about other Stampin' Up! Products and stamping techniques. Until next time, happy stamping!